Welcome back. This is the fourth piece of this video series. Again, if you have not noticed in the past, I tend to wear the same clothes and I tend to have the same painting in the series. This is one of my original origami prints. It's a koi fish on canvas. Yes, I created all those fish by hand. It took me a while. And what's interesting about that painting is that originally there were a lot more fish, and over time they've fallen. And I've actually fallen in love more with the painting since some of the areas, the fish from some of the areas have fallen off. It just makes it a little bit more random, makes it a little bit more unique. And actually, some of the fish have actually moved off the direction that I originally placed them on. So it's kind of a cool piece. I really, I sit at night and it sits next to my TV, so I tend to look at it often. All right, the last piece. So we've talked about, teams. We talked about management, team members. We talked about upper management and the environment that they provide in the Bulls video. In the first video, in the second video, we talked about intelligence quotient, how the mental age over the physical age is how IQ tended to be defined. And again, mental age was defined in terms of ability to language and logic, math. But for our purposes, we just want to talk about general mental age. If somebody asks their age and their IQ is 100, okay, somebody is wiser than their age and their maybe IQ is 120. And it's oftentimes, talking about IQ, I'm not a big believer that IQ makes that much of a difference. If you got a guy with a 130 IQ that acts like his IQ is 120, that means that he's not thinking too highly of himself. And he's oftentimes ends up working a little bit harder. Or somebody like Musk, whose IQ might be 150, but unfortunately, he believes his IQ is 200. So on another line, so IQ is just one piece. The second piece that we talked about was emotional intelligence. For the team members, being able to encourage and take the weaknesses and remove them from team members and encourage them to, make an interpersonal connection to other team members, or interpersonal, being able to examine yourself for your strengths and weaknesses and being able to improve those over time. So if you really think about, the first piece is really the head, the second piece is the heart, and the third piece now that I want to add is the hand quotient. Now, what do I mean by that? If you read literature, you often will come across the IQ, the EQ, but very few, if any, people talk about the hand quotient. So to me, another way to think about the hand quotient is the ability to execute, to do things, to not get into your head, to not let your emotions push you in the wrong direction, but to be able to actually take a step forward, do something. Many years ago, I was a professor, and I had a group of students in front of me, and I had a conversation with them, and I asked them the following question. I said, "What prevents you from being successful?" And half of them said, "Well, lack of motivation," and the second half said they were just lazy. And I was kind of surprised at those answers. I think a lot of people have mistakenly started believing that emotion comes before motion. And I completely disagree with that. Motion, doing something, always comes before emotion. If you are a team, you're going to do things, it's better to do something and then kind of figure out whether it was the right thing, wrong thing, and fix it. And over time, you'll develop incredible abilities to believe that you can fix it, rather than just sit there and think, "Well, we can't do that. I don't want to do that." You're thinking yourself out of the game. So I'm a firm believer that the IQ, the EQ, and the hand Q have, and HQ, I guess we could call it, have to work together. And if you put importance on a team success, I would say the HQ is probably about 60% of the success. 20% is managing the emotions of the team and relationships between team members, and 20% is how smart that team is. So you can have a successful team that manages emotions and works hard. That's not mentally, that's not the best team. But if you have a really smart team, 20%, and it's got good emotional mastery, that's only 40% of the battle. You're not going to win. So that's the last piece that I want to talk about. Now, an example that we talked about with the Patriots, they had to execute. IQ, stopping the other team's defense was just the first step. Edelman getting into Tom Brady's head. And if you look at, there was a reason why Edelman was the MVP of the Super Bowl and not Tom Brady. Because at key moments, he was able to mentally put himself in a state to catch a pass, to do things, and that nobody could compensate, against. So emotionally, he was in the game. He could, that's a pretty emotional event, the Super Bowl. So for him to be able to clear his head and contribute, and in the end, they just had to do a little bit better than their opponent to win the Super Bowl. So back to the course. I think Mahan is actually going through the course and doing the exercises. That's why originally on LinkedIn I placed just videos, and then when I took those videos and put them on Thinkific, I added PowerPoint slides, I added quizzes, and maps. So I think those, instead of one piece, you're getting multiple pieces to help you with the actual doing, the execution. So hopefully these 4 videos kind of give you something to think about. If you're a manager, if you're a team member, and all of us are members of some team, you should always be looking at the group and saying how good of a team this is mentally. How good of a team is this emotionally? How good is this team in executing? And how do we build on this? How do we make this team better? And that's really what a good manager does. And that it doesn't always fall on the manager. That's what great team. If you look at all the teams that LeBron has played on, he's willed his team members to get better. And sometimes they were replaced. They couldn't handle it. So I strongly urge you to evaluate your team, those 2 things, and use my course as a resource to help you get better in refineries. So appreciate your efforts and keeping up with this video series and your likes. So thank you. Enjoy.